Okay, before we start, I just wanted to go over the tools that you're going to need. Unlike me, who just, grabs one thing at a time, it's probably best if you get everything set up and are just ready to go with everything there. So that's what I'm going to talk about right now. Obviously, the first thing is the owner's manual for your motorcycle. This tells you basically how to do it. It tells you what to do. It doesn't exactly tell you how to do it, but following the instructions in this is definitely best practices. Like, this will tell you the amount that you need to torque the certain bolts and the oil filter and stuff, and it'll also tell you like the measurements of how much oil you need to put in and give you kind of a step-by-step process for what you should be doing. So refer to this over me for sure. The second thing you're going to need, obviously, since you're doing an oil change, is the oil itself. Now, I've talked to, again, refer to your manual for like what oil your bike needs specifically, but if it's a Ninja 500 like mine, it's probably going to need the same oil, which in this case is 10W40 motorcycle oil. And there's just a couple things you need to look out for that you want the oil to have or not have. Like, first of all, if you're buying a generic oil like Mobil 1, which is fine to use. I've talked to people at the motorcycle dealership and online. I've read a bunch, and the consensus seems to be it's okay as long as you get, high quality stuff from a reputable place, right? It can be Castrol or Mobil 1 or Kawasaki brand oil, right? It just matters that it's for motorcycles. It's fully synthetic 4-cylinder engine oil, and it also you want to have on here a transmission and wet clutch, because this oil is also going to lubricate the clutch of your bike, not only the engine. So that's important. And if you just get like regular oil that doesn't say motorcycle or 4-cylinder oil, then you're going to have a bad time, and it's going to probably mess up your bike pretty badly. So just do your research on that. If you're going to change the filter, which you probably are going to want to, you just need a filter for your oil, and the part number right here is 160970008, whatever. You can find this on your old oil filter. It'll say the part number. And I remember when looking at this, I just bought these off of Amazon. I'll put the link for everything I bought on Amazon in the description. But there was a couple different filters, and I was at first a little bit unsure what to buy because I think there's 2 different part numbers. But for one, you can check in the manual. And if not, this is the filter. I've used 2 of these on my bike now, so I can vouch for that working. That's pretty much all the supplies you'll need. The filter and the oil. You're going to need about 3 of these. You're going to need 3 of these, or like 2 and a little bit extra, so you might as well just get 3. But yeah, if you're refilling the entire... if you're refilling all your oil, you're going to need 2.1 quarts, which is kind of awkward because one of them is exactly a quart. But it's always probably good to have a little bit extra on hand. Now, the tools that you're going to need, this is definitely a worthwhile investment. Like, up front here, it's a little bit of a cost, but it's way cheaper than getting it done at a shop, even the first time you do it. And also, once you have the tools, you have them forever, and it's great because I'm sure you can use them for other things, working on other things for your motorcycle, right? So probably the most important tool here is a torque wrench, which I got this one at Tractor Supply, or maybe Harbor and Freight. I think it was Harbor and Freight, right? This is just a standard $40 torque wrench, right? You can I went to Lowe's and I was looking at them. You can get fancy digital ones that are like $180, but this one is just all mechanical. It doesn't even barely say the brand on it, right? It's just a $40 Harbor Freight Pittsburgh torque wrench, click type torque wrench. And the most important part is that it goes low enough, it's sensitive or delicate enough for the torque that you need for the bike. Like, I think the oil filter was like, 12.9 or something. So a lot of them didn't go that low, but I found one that did. Definitely don't need to spend a ton of money on this. I'm sure you can also order one on Amazon, but again, do your research independently on all this stuff. That's kind of how you learn. The other thing you're going to need is a set of metric wrenches and sockets. Probably not a set. I mean, you only need, for my bike, it's the 17 size 17 socket, but I just bought a whole set of them because I'm sure it's something that you'll want to have in the future, right? There's other parts on the bike that are metric. This is a Japanese motorcycle, so most of the parts are going to be metric rather than imperial or whatever we use. Yeah, so just the socket, obviously you're going to need that for this. And then having just a regular wrench is kind of nice because you can get in there and loosen things like the drain bolt easily. Then you're also going to need this little custom piece. This is a specific tool that you're only going to use for changing the oil filter. This is probably the most like niche and annoying thing, but it's just, it fits on your socket wrench and it goes around the oil filter and you can use it to tension that down. And this one is a 65/14 size, so that might be helpful to know. Also, to remove some of the fairings, you have to remove one of the little side fairings, one of the side panels, to get at the oil filter. And for that, I just used the metric hex wrench set. This is like $5 at Lowe's or Home Depot, so that's nice. And those are really all the tools you need. I don't think you need anything else specifically. It helps to have this. I'm actually filming this afterwards, so it's a little bit dirty, obviously. It's still leaking oil, but having a funnel and a drip pan makes the process much easier and there's less cleanup, so I would definitely recommend those things. All right, this is the must though, and then everything else is kind of optional. And here I go, tripping over the final piece of the puzzle. This is a stand. It just, you'll have seen in the video, but it just slides under your motorcycle, and I'm assuming you could do this without it, you know, it would be kind of awkward, and maybe some bikes have a center stand, but the Ninjas don't, so this, for me, is a must as well. I think it costs like $50 on Amazon. All of these tools combined probably cost, probably you get everything for less than $200, which I think for the ability to work on your motorcycle forever is a pretty good deal, and I'm including the oil and the filter for the first time in that as well. So yeah, those are the tools that you need. Yeah, that'll be perfect. Okay. Let's go ahead and check the temp here. $170. All right, 170 won't melt my fingers off. All right, here you see I'm just taking off the drain bolt. With the first wrench, I loosen it, and then I kind of use the socket in my fingers to slowly take it off. That way, if you take it off too fast, sometimes the oil can spray out and make a big mess. I actually did that the first time I did this. I also go over to the other side and I remove the top where you put the oil in just to make it flow smoothly. You'll also notice that I have a piece of cardboard underneath the bike. This just helps if any oil does spill, it'll get on the cardboard, and that's much easier to clean up than your driveway afterwards. After that, I kind of just use my finger. Obviously, if the oil's hot, you want to be careful, but it turned out to not be as hot as I thought it was. You can see I was actually a little bit worried, but it wasn't too bad. Then I just take the bolt out and put it to the side, and I'm going to let the oil drain off completely. Now here is the new filter. Alright, here you see me taking off this bottom fairing. You should probably just do this at the beginning and it'll make your life easier. I wanted to talk a little bit about why I'm doing the oil change and why I'm working on my bike, but if you want to skip ahead to when I continue and remove the filter, please go ahead. One of the things I was really excited for when I got my motorcycle is the fact that I could work on it myself. I have a car and I've never tried to do any of my own work on the car. It's just very complicated and I don't really have the tools or the space to do it. But with a bike, you can kind of do it anywhere. You can do it in your driveway. I'm basically doing it on the sidewalk here. And you really only need minimal tools and um, minimal education. That's part of why I'm making this video, is because I learned how to do this from another YouTube video and just from reading the manual. And I thought it would be cool to document the process and share what I've learned. Obviously, this is only my second time doing this. I'm not a pro at it at all, and I'm sure that I'll get better at it over time. But it's really fun to work on your own machine, and it makes you feel more in tune with it as well as saves you money. So I thought that was really cool. I've definitely done a couple things to it that were mistakes, nothing that actually permanently damaged it, but that kind of comes with the territory. You should, when you buy your first bike, I feel like you should kind of go into it knowing that it's going to be a learning experience and understanding that you're not just buying this thing to ride it, like you're buying it to learn how to take care of it. So in the future, when you have a more expensive machine or you own a couple bikes, you can take care of them even better. Something to note here is just to move the pan underneath the oil filter. There's not too much in it, but I think the first time I did this, I didn't do it, and the oil from the filter all just spilled out onto the sidewalk. Of course, I didn't have cardboard that time either. Okay, so now it's gonna fill this up a bit. About halfway. Okay. Okay. Alright, here I'm just filling it up with the oil finally. You can see it got a little bit dark, so I'm sorry if it's not super easy to see, but you should get the gist of it, and this is honestly the easiest part. I actually wanted to talk about the first time I did this. I was really stressed that I didn't have the right oil and that I would damage the bike. Obviously, I did all my research, but you're still, as someone that's learning, uncertain about this, and when it's your first time doing it, you just want to make sure you really get it right. But as long as you do your research and you have the right stuff, you should be good to go, right? Filling it up is kind of complicated at first because you want it to fill up to this line that's on your little window on the oil reservoir, and sometimes you fill up the amount that it says and it's not up to the line, or actually the first time I did it, it was a little bit high. I think the best thing to do would be to err on the side of having a little bit more oil rather than a little bit less. Like if it's lower than the line, obviously keep adding it. You don't want it to be overfilled, but it's safer to add a little bit extra than to have not enough, I think is the consensus. Obviously, I'm not a mechanic, so this is less advice and more just what I've learned and what vibe I'm going with, right? So, something that's kind of helpful is the full volume of it, right, is 2.1 quarts. So I'm going to put two whole quarts in, and then I have a little bit extra, and zero point 0.1 of a quart, I think, is like 3.4 fluid ounces or something. So you could even use a measurement and get exactly the amount that it says in there. But I did about that. I used one of the bottles and the little side of it to measure it, and it still looked a little bit below the line. So I think in that instance, it's better to add more and make sure it's to the top of the reservoir. Obviously, if your bike isn't directly upright, it's going to affect where it is. Like if you're doing this just on your kickstand, you're going to have to physically pick your bike up and try to hold it level while you look at it, and that might not be too accurate. So I think that's really where the having the stand comes into play and what makes it so nice. But yeah, just use your best judgment, and I think it's harder to mess up than you might assume.